like, okay, I have to, because this thing, it starts deleting on Facebook. Crap.
Deleting.
That's okay, honey. Sorry, guys. We had some deletions there on Facebook, so I'll have to come back into our Facebook community to make sure that they're able to watch too. But I'm so happy that you all are with us on this evening. And hello to each and every one of you. I'm Charles Reynolds with Living Manna SDA Church. And I have my wife here, Dr. Kenesha Reynolds. Tonight is going to be a very good presentation. And I'll tell you why. Alzheimer's and dementia are becoming increasingly common in our society. A new report released by the Alzheimer's Association reveals the extensive impact of Alzheimer's disease and dementia on individuals, on families, and society at large. Now, as we grow older, it becomes even more important to keep our brains healthy. And today, Dr. Kenesha Reynolds will share several nutrients for a healthy brain. Honey, you ready to go?
Thank you, Charles. Let's see, I gotta share my screen here. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, I will cover several nutrients that are really important for brain health, not for just Alzheimer's or neurodegeneration, but also for mental health. These critical nutrients are really important to get into the diet, and they've been shown to play a very important role in slowing brain aging as well as improving mental health.
And honey, just real quick to let everyone know, after you're done speaking, make sure you'll be taking a couple of questions, just a few of them, but make sure you put your questions in the chat, folks, so that if you have any questions, she's able to get to them. We'll do that after the presentation. All right, dear, it's back to you.
It's becoming clear that consumption of diets rich in phytochemicals can influence neural inflammation and mediate the activation of signaling pathways, leading to the expression of cytoprotective or cell protection and restorative proteins. The writers go on to say, remarkable progress has been made to realize that oxidative stress and chronic low-grade inflammation are major risk factors underlying brain aging. And so from our previous discussion on chronic inflammation, it is true that this is the underlying disease, part of the disease process that's happening in a lot of conditions affecting the brain, including mood disorders and anxiety and depression. So some important nutrients that are really, really important to consider, for example, would be magnesium. Lower serum magnesium levels are associated with depressive symptoms. And so supplemental magnesium as a therapy could be quite useful in patients who have depression and anxiety. But before we go into how magnesium play a role in those conditions, it's important to understand the biological role of magnesium. Over 3,751 magnesium binding proteins exist in the body. So magnesium is really important in virtually every system in the body. And we have to appreciate that. It serves as a cofactor for over 300 enzymes. So when there's many systems in a body or enzymes or binding proteins or sites for magnesium, that means it's really important to get in. It's important for cellular metabolism. It regulates calcium and potassium. And it's really important in cardiovascular health, helping with blood pressure regulation, also metabolism, energy production, bone homeostasis, so bone health, and also our mitochondria. And I talked briefly a couple of weeks ago about magnesium, and it's one of those important nutrients that we definitely have to get in the body. There is a random controls trial that looked at magnesium intake, and around 300 milligrams per day was shown to alleviate stress symptoms in women with low magnesium levels. And it's important to note, and I have to stress this too, that when you're deficient in one nutrient, you're likely deficient in many others, and they work synergistically together. So in another study, they looked at the combination treatment of magnesium combined with vitamin B6, and the same thing, you saw improved mood. And something to mention too with this is that magnesium and B6 is commonly used in women who have PMS. And that's a big problem for, I'm sure a lot of women deal with PMS, and there's a mood change component to PMS. And so I utilize magnesium combined with B6 for these types of women who have mood changes as they're going through their cycle. But this is also something that can be used and have been used for patients who are suffering from mood disorders. So it's important to know how magnesium is working. There's so many different mechanisms, but magnesium plays a role in regulating calcium ions into the neuron. And there's a lot of complex mechanisms, but once calcium enters the neuron, it creates nitric oxide. Well, here's the thing. If there is not enough magnesium, then this whole entire process with these calcium channels, nothing works properly. And what happens is it manifests as depressive symptoms. And so aside from this, aside from the role magnesium play on these calcium channels in a neuron, magnesium plays an important role in our neuropeptide productions, like our dopamine and our serotonin, GABA. So it makes sense why magnesium will be really, really important to include in a diet, or make sure that you have adequate reserves of magnesium so that these biochemical pathways can occur and work properly. So magnesium sources, and a lot of people don't get enough magnesium in a diet. It's typically found in whole grains, dark green leafy vegetables, your legumes, your beans, your nuts, your seeds. But many people are not eating these types of foods, and so you're not getting adequate intake of magnesium. The other issue, of course, is if you're on any medications like proton pump inhibitors or statins, these medications, or even antacids, they block stomach acid. And so you need stomach acid in order to absorb your magnesium and other important minerals. Now, there's also if you want to incorporate more magnesium into the diet, you can supplement, but it's important to understand that there are different forms of magnesium. Magnesium glycinate is a form of magnesium combined with amino acid glycine. And glycine has been used as a standalone treatment for insomnia and mood disorders. But when it's combined with magnesium, it works well. So this particular form of magnesium glycinate is bioavailable, so you can absorb it easily, and is great for mood and sleep. Okay. Magnesium threonate is really important for brain health. So if you're considering increasing, because the threonine, which is the amino acid that's combined with magnesium, helps to increase magnesium in brain tissue. It also crosses the blood-brain barrier. Magnesium citrate. This is magnesium combined with citric acid, and it's actually, it has a mild laxative effect, which is why magnesium citrate is commonly used to treat constipation. And then magnesium taurate. Taurine is an amino acid that it accumulates in cardiac tissue. So for cardiovascular purposes, magnesium taurate is quite effective for that. It's been shown to lower hypertension, and it's also cardioprotective. So magnesium plays an important physiological role, particularly in brain, heart, and skeletal muscle. Magnesium supplementation has been shown to be beneficial in the treatment of preeclampsia, migraine, depression, coronary artery disease, and asthma. So magnesium impacts a lot of different aspects of the body. And we have to appreciate that. I think sometimes we take for granted nutrition. And I know I talk a lot about nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist, but I talk a lot about nutrition because it really, when we're trying to transform the body and heal from within, we have to start with what we're putting in our bodies and what things need to be removed from the body in terms of our diet. So B vitamins are really important as well. In a systematic review and meta-analysis, they actually found that B vitamin supplementation was shown to help improve mood and stress symptoms as well. Now, why is this? Well, B vitamins play a very important role in a lot of things, as well as magnesium. Energy production of mitochondria. So again, here we go. We see the mitochondria as a very important aspect of health, and these nutrients are playing a role in helping to drive the processes of the mitochondria. B vitamins also play a role in DNA, RNA synthesis and repair, DNA methylation, the synthesis of neuropeptides, neurochemicals that are play a very important role in our mood, our behavior, our thinking, signaling molecules, blood cell formation. B vitamin B1, B6, and B12 play a very important role in the nervous system. So tryptophan is an amino acid, and in order to convert it to 5-HTP, it needs B vitamins, it needs magnesium, and this pathway is the serotonin pathway. So this is why making sure you're getting these nutrients are really important, because it does impact the production of important neuropeptides. Tyrosine, L-DOPA, this goes into producing dopamine and so forth. So again, you see the same thing. Magnesium, B vitamins, they play a role in these important biochemical pathways. And these pathways impact our, as I mentioned, our neuropeptides. So when we think about, mood and behavior and just, those things, we have to think about what are the important dietary components that are driving some of these disease states. So phytonutrients and antioxidants, one of my favorite. I use curcumin a lot. It has over 100 molecular targets. It has so many different mechanisms in the body. So phytochemical that's in turmeric root. Just to put this on a table, turmeric root contains many curcuminoids. Curcumin is just one type of curcuminoid. So a lot of times people make that, they get that confused. Curcumin, it makes up 2% of turmeric root, but there's so many different types of curcuminoids inside turmeric root. In a 12-week random control trial, they did a titration study, and they found that increase in doses from 500 to 1,500 milligrams of curcumin helped to improve major depressive disorder. And why is that? It's because curcumin has anti-inflammatory, antioxidative effects, and I'll talk about that a little bit. And curcumin also has been shown to be a therapeutic tool in treating dementia patients with neurodegenerative diseases. So, in American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry, they looked at different a type of curcumin, bioavailable form of curcumin called theracumin. Theracumin, my apologies, 900 or 90 milligrams twice daily. And these were in patients who were non-demented between ages of 51 and 84. And they found what was interesting was that there was a decrease in amyloid and tau accumulation in brain regions affecting mood and memory. And the reason being is because curcumin, again, it has anti-inflammatory effects. It's able to modulate the inflammatory pathways in the brain. And it also is, because it's a phytochemical, it has antioxidative properties as well. So 2 weeks ago, I talked about oxidative stress and this low-grade chronic inflammation. And we understand that a lot of mood disorders and neurodegeneration does have inflammation as its basis. And this is why curcumin can be extremely powerful, because it's anti-inflammatory, it's antioxidative, it's going to quench that oxidative stress. Because another thing that's often seen in patients with these conditions is this abundance of free radicals in the brain. And so curcumin can actually quench the antioxidative aspects of oxidative stress. It's also neuroprotective in being able to decrease the beta amyloid plaques, which tends to be an issue in patients with Alzheimer's. This has really nothing to do with the topic today, but it's important to note that curcumin also is a hepatic protective herb as well. So it helps to modulate the detox pathways of the liver. It also supports gallbladder function as well. And it helps with the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and being able to modulate that stress response. And so it has multiple mechanisms of action and is extremely powerful because of it. Vitamins and antioxidants, a lot of people do not get this in a diet. Not only are B vitamins important, but there was an observational study that looked at general anxiety disorder, and they found that serum levels of vitamins A, C, D, and E were low in patients who had GAD. But with supplementation with vitamin A, C, and E, there was significant reduction in anxiety and depression. And so, again, going back to what we talked about, oxidative stress and this low-grade inflammation, by incorporating antioxidants into the diet and restoring your vitamin or nutrient levels, you start to have changes to mood disorders. And we're actually almost wrapping it up here. I didn't want to make this too long. I actually have a part 2. So omega-3 is really, really, really important. There's EPA and DHA. DHA tends to be highest in the brain tissue, but it's also been shown to be quite effective in treating major depressive disorder. So in a 12-week trial, they looked at the supplementation of omega-3, and they found that participants were able to actually see a reduction in their depression symptoms and anxiety, and even sleep disturbances, and overall improved mood. Okay, omega-3 is really important. It's been shown to delay cognitive decline in patients with in early stages of Alzheimer's. And again, similar to, a little bit different mechanism, but again, omega-3 one thing to keep in mind is that the brain, because it's composed of a lot of polyunsaturated fat, it means that it tends to be, out of all the tissues and organs in the body, it tends to be the most susceptible to lipid peroxidation or damage, inflammation. And so you want to restore healthy brain fats. And the way to do that is to incorporate more omega-3 fatty acids in a diet. So roles of DHA in the neurons, there's so many things, from modulating gene expression, enzymes and receptors. There's so much that it does in being able to modulate, inhibit apoptosis and neural inflammation. And this is again why, curcumin and having healthy fats in a diet, you're modulating these inflammatory cascades, these inflammatory responses that are being activated. Something else, the oxidative stress. I see this a lot too. I test it. I can actually see and measure oxidative stress. And one thing that's really interesting that I've seen is that as people get older, I see more oxidative stress. And this is what is part of the aging process. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to happen to the degree that we see it. So a lot of these conditions that affect the brain can be slowed down or even prevented with simple lifestyle practices and incorporating important nutrients that play a role in modulating these pathways. So the DHA, your phytochemicals, your phytonutrients, eating a diet that's high in antioxidants, making sure that your antioxidant reserves are there so that you can quench this oxidative stress and lower inflammation. You want to make sure that you have adequate vitamins. And if you are taking medications or anything like that, you're supplementing, or at least talking to your doctor about supplementing to restore those nutrients, because they play a very important role in running your body. Patients with Alzheimer's disease with lower baseline omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids levels were associated with higher risk of cognitive decline, okay? And a lower baseline DHA level, not so much EPA, but DHA. And that's because that concentrates the most in brain, the brain tissue. So making sure that you have adequate omega-3 in a diet and you're eating healthy fats, not refined plant, vegetable oils, healthy omega-3 oils. So I'm going to wrap this up. Phytonutrient density, and I talk about this a lot because it's really important to get these nutrients in. We all know from just the sciences in the literature that diets that are high in phytonutrients and this diversity, it does slow neural inflammation, and it will help slow cognitive decline as well. Antioxidants, because of that oxidative stress, eating dark green, dark colored vegetables, fruits and vegetables, including your spices. So curcumin is one of them. In fact, the incidence of Alzheimer's disease is lower in India because of likely due to their high consumption of curry and turmeric. So you want to, consider incorporating turmeric into the diet for that reason. Again, increase in vegetables, your legumes, healthy fats for your brain. And this is another thing, and this is really important. In autopsy studies, they've actually seen that there's higher amounts of cholesterol in the arteries in patients with Alzheimer's. And so improving cardiovascular health, making sure that, and I didn't really touch on this in a future, I will, but there are different things that can impact the blood-brain barrier, and oxidative stress is one of them. But having having cardiovascular disease can affect the blood-brain barrier. So you may have heard of this term called leaky gut. Well, there is a term called leaky brain. So you can have leaky brain as well. And when you have a disrupted blood-brain barrier, then that allows for things that should not enter into the brain to get into the brain, and that becomes a problem. And so improving cardiovascular health will also improve the vasculature of the brain, and that ultimately helps with the improving the blood-brain barrier as well, and keeping that as well intact. This is also important. Someone asked a question 2 weeks ago about supplementation, and should we not take supplements? And here's, I want to go back to this, and this is why nutrient testing can be really important, and checking your omega-3, your EPA, your DHA levels can be extremely powerful, because you can actually get an idea of where you stand nutritionally. If you have if you have someone, or you're personally dealing with cognitive decline, or mood disorders, anything that's affecting brain health, mental health, you can actually consider talking to your doctor about checking what your nutrient status is. And a lot of people take supplements and have no idea what their nutrient status, what their nutrient status looks like. And so you might be over supplementing on something that was intended to do you well, but it's actually not. So to better optimize your health, better optimize brain health, get an assessment of where you stand from a nutrition perspective, and also from healthy fat. Find out what your EPA and DHA levels are, and so forth. Okay, this is part 1, and we'll go into part 2 probably next week, or the week after.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, let me mute my microphone. That should sound better. Y'all let me know in the chat if I sound okay. Honey, that was sure a little shorter than the last one, but power packed. Thanks so much for this presentation.
I didn't want to oversaturate people, so I broke it up.
Yeah.
Thank
you for that, dear. We want to make sure we don't wear them out. There were a few questions that we had here, and I'm just going to go through them. One from Miss Williams, which says, what would you recommend if you have poor absorption?
Oh, yeah, really good question. I really love that question. Okay, so absorption starts with the digestive tract. So a lot of times what I've noticed, people have what is called hydrochlorhydria. That means low stomach acid. And so in those situations, you're not going to adequately break down your protein, absorb your magnesium, your calcium, your iron, your B12. And so I'm going to break that down into 2 things, actually. So when we talk about absorption of vitamins and minerals, that can be affected by the status of your levels of your stomach acid. But with curcumin, for example, I brought up curcumin, and it is, something to consider. Absorption is a problem. Bioavailability of curcumin, or I should say turmeric, or the curcuminoids in turmeric tend to be lower. So I want to answer two things because she brought up that question. It made me think about the curcumin bioavailability. So with vitamins that I mentioned, or the minerals, you would have to talk to your doctor about supplementing with HCl to aid absorption. But let me also mention that you have to ask the question, why are you having absorption problems? Is it because of low stomach acid because of a medication, or is it because of inadequate mastication of your food? So absorption is influenced by a number of different things, and it can be improved by chewing better. It can be improved by having adequate levels of stomach acid. Stomach acid decreases as we age, and it naturally, and it also decreases, and there's a potentiated effect when you're taking medications and you're aging, you start to deplete your stomach acid even further. So talking to your doctor about HCl supplementation would aid that. With curcumin, I did want to bring that up. It's important to understand that curcumin bioavailability is low. So when you're taking turmeric, you'll have to use it with piperine or black pepper. There are liposomal forms of curcumin, and it's also the not structure, but the properties of curcumin is lipophilic, which means that it needs fat for absorption. So you should take it with fatty meals. But yeah, hopefully I answered that question.
Yeah, you did. I think that's what's going to help you when you have poor absorption. So you guys just, by the way, got a chance to see why I call her the CSI doc, because she's using some of those skills that she developed as a crime scene investigator, really delving into why things are happening, not just looking at the outcome or the symptoms, but also the reason those symptoms are taking place. Honey, there's another question as I excuse our daughter out of the studio here, from Julie. And Julie says, I heard that magnesium is best absorbed when taken before bed. What are your thoughts about timing? And I know you do.
Nutrient timing.
Yeah, and she's asking specifically about magnesium. I know you talk a lot about timing generally, about supplementation in general, but what do you say about magnesium timing before bed?
Yeah, well, magnesium, as I mentioned, there are different forms. And if you're taking magnesium in the evening, you're really taking it to support sleep. And in that case, nutrient absorption of magnesium would be ideal to take it in the evening. But really, the thing that really affects magnesium absorption is your level of stomach acid, and then also the type of chelated form of magnesium. So typically in the evening when people are taking magnesium, it really depends, because most people are taking either magnesium citrate or magnesium glycinate. Those forms are great for absorption in the evening, but typically magnesium, what really affects it is stomach acid. So I don't think it's all that big of a deal if you take the supplement early in the day or in the middle of the day. But there are some supplements that it really depends. The time of day that you take it depends on what you're trying to achieve as well. So I don't know. I can't really say that taking magnesium in the evening the absorption would be any better per se. But I do know that when people take it in the evening, it tends to be the glycinate or citrate, which affects digestive health or mood and sleep. And in that case, you would take it in the evening for that reason, but not necessarily for absorption.
Oh, I got you, honey. So it kind of helps with what your body is already trying to do at that time of the day or night, rather.
Right. So that brings up another thing that comes up. So, for example, B vitamins. So you theoretically you could take vitamins at any time of the day, but depending on what is going on, you might actually take the vitamin um, in the morning. For example, B vitamins, they tend to give you more energy. If you take them in the evening, you might rev up your energy. So, and it really depends on how much. So, time of day is important. Um, Absorption is different from time of day, somewhat. Um, yeah,
Yeah, you can absorb something well, which is not related to the time of day because you could absorb it well at any time of day.
sometimes because we decrease our genes for gene expression for digestion. All of that slows down in the evening. So you tend to be in terms of your insulin sensitivity, stomach acid production tends to be highest during the early parts of the day. So all the things that really the digestive system does in terms of function and absorption, a lot of it happens in the early part of the day. But there are some supplements that you would take. You would take in the evening depending on what you're trying to achieve. And yeah, so hopefully that answered the question. I
Yeah,
know that was a mouthful.
thanks for that question, Julie. That was really helpful for people to give feedback on that because I know you're not the only one with that question. And Honey Deborah mentions that she's glad that you talk about nutrition because it helps her to make better choices. Well, Deborah, that's exactly what True Health Tuesdays are all about,
Mhm.
helping you to make better choices. So we're
Mhm.
glad to hear that. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
And she also asks the question, she mentions that sometimes a depressive person may not want to eat food.
Mm.
Will juicing be more effective in these situations? What do you
Yeah,
think, Ed?
absolutely. Yeah. Juicing, extracting the pulp, you get concentrated nutrition. I think is great. Vegetable powders are also an easy source of nutrition. And so those are great ideas actually. If people's nutrient intake it decreases because of their condition.
All right, good. Just make sure if you use a powder, you still want to get those whole foods in. Hopefully, it's a whole food powder. It's not too much other junk in there. We've got a question from Janet who asks, will a recording be available? Lots of valuable information. Yes, Janet, a recording. This is on YouTube right now. And I'll make sure to get it over to our friends on Facebook as well. So you'll be able to watch and share this video. Be sure to follow, by the way, Living Manna at My Living Manna. That's everywhere: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram at My Living Manna. And you can follow Dr. Reynolds on the with the information on the screen right now at Pure Wholeness Natural Medicine. Thanks, Janet, for that. Joanne says, how often should turmeric be used?
Mhm.
Is there a suggested dosage since it's said to be a blood thinning agent?
Mhm.
Oh, that's a lot there.
So typically you're seeing doses around 500 milligrams up to 3,000 milligrams daily. Curcumin, yeah, it does have mild blood thinning effects, but that's at really high doses. We're talking, 8,000, 12,000 milligrams, and most people are not taking that, one. And two, with turmeric, it's really, you're not going to get the 1,000 milligram. You would have to take a lot of it. So you're usually supplementing with curcumin to get those therapeutic doses. And I think so, a quarter teaspoon is the equivalent of 90 milligrams of curcumin, a quarter teaspoon. So you can't, and because the bioavailability is just, it's not there, you can't really think that you're going to thin your blood with taking, um, you know, curcumin, eating curry every single day. You're not just, usually it becomes a concern when you're supplementing with actual curcumin capsules, supplement, and taking a lot of it at really high doses. That's when it becomes a problem. It has a very mild blood thinning effect.
Honey, at high doses, are you really talking about uh, like the injections, the IV turmeric or curcumin that was popular for a while?
No, I'm also oh yeah, but no, I'm talking about
Even at
oral.
lower dosages?
I'm sorry.
Even in lower dosages, so not
No.
quite as high as you would get in IV, but higher than
Yeah,
people
I
would
mean,
typically take in capsule form.
you can take 3,000 milligrams curcumin, and it's not gonna have a huge impact on thinning the blood. That becomes a concern too when people are taking blood thinning agents. But again, it's at really, really high concentrations.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, it's still worth keeping in mind. I'm not suggesting that anybody go indulge on a whole bunch of turmeric. You still, it is, it is medicinal. You do want to keep in mind the effects that it has, especially if you're taking medications. But always talk to your doctor if you're planning to supplement with any dietary supplement. And I do want to say this because it's really important. Supplementation, okay? Supplementation is not a replacement of nutrition, okay? So when you're balancing the body and you're healing from within, you're trying to reduce inflammation, you have to first start with nutrition, what you're putting in. But to further help support the body's innate ability to heal itself, you can supplement with these supplements because they're going to help facilitate what your body naturally does. But it's never a replacement.
All right, so supplement, not substitute, right, honey?
That's right.
That's what supplements are. They're to supplement, not to substitute food. There is no substitute for healthy nutrition.
So still take the turmeric, is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So you can benefit from the other curcuminoids that are present in turmeric.
All right, and then we have a question here from Lavena. So you mentioned several nutrients, honey, and she's asking, can we take these things simultaneously?
Well, that goes back to the point I made regarding nutrient testing and making sure you know what your body needs. And so I've seen this on testing where people are supplementing with B vitamins or supplementing with uh, over supplementing with iron and things that they don't need because they haven't really done any testing. They just hear something's good and they go get it and try it. And a lot of times people over supplement. So that becomes a problem when you're taking a lot of things. But typically, most people are deficient in a lot of things. And so if you're taking a vitamin, taking a mineral, you should be fine. But I think to take them correctly, you should get your levels tested so that you can know that you're not overdoing one nutrient. And yeah, because if you take too much of one nutrient, it can impact the absorption of another, because sometimes some nutrients compete with one another, such as zinc and copper, for example. If you take too much zinc, you start to deplete your copper levels. So it's important to know exactly, and so not so much of an interaction there, but having too much of one nutrient can impact the absorption of another nutrient.
Wow, that is such a critical point right there, honey. Thank you for bringing that up, because, and there are a lot of those scenarios, right, where you can have where one nutrient has to be in balance with another, especially when it comes to those minerals.
Yeah, certainly. So magnesium levels impact vitamin D absorption, and we don't really hear about that. But if your magnesium levels are low, that can impact your vitamin D absorption, because magnesium play a role in vitamin D absorption pathway.
And vitamin D plays a role in numerous functions throughout the body. So we definitely don't want to obstruct that absorption of vitamin D. All right, we've got two other questions here, two final questions. One is, what is the best way to get omega-3? This is from Harlan. I'm not I think you may have touched on this earlier, honey, but still worth mentioning briefly. What are some of the best ways to get omega-3?
So omega-3 you can get in a diet from your nuts, your seeds, healthy, flaxseed oil, for example, walnuts. You can get omega-3 from those sources. You can supplement with omega-3. I know people who supplement with fish oil. I know, and with the fish oils, you have to make sure they're not rancid or oxidized, because a lot of omega-3 products on the market are they're oxidized. So people are taking these fish oils with the intent to help with cardiovascular function, but it's actually it's encouraging cardiovascular disease because the oil's oxidized. And so the fish oil, krill oil, or you can get omega-3 from algae. Okay. I do want to just make a note here. When you take fish oil, it's really important that you check with the manufacturer that there's no heavy metals in the product, because some fish are high in heavy metals. So it's important to make sure that the omega-3 supplement is not oxidized and is free of heavy metals. You can easily do this by consulting a manufacturer and requesting a certificate of analysis and looking at the actual testing that they've done on the product. If you consume fish oil and you burp and it's fishy, it's oxidized oil. So just make sure that you talk to the manufacturer. Don't purchase anything from Amazon, and really make sure that the oil is of high quality. Yeah.
All right, and honey, there are some non-fish omega-3 supplements as well, right?
Yeah, I mentioned algae.
So we're not encouraging you to take fish oil. We don't eat fish personally. We are all plants. However, saints, if somebody is really sick, better to take fish oil strictly to increase their omega-3 than to go on drugs. So, everything has to be weighed in context.
Right.
Okay. And here's another question, honey. Here's our final question here. Is there Oh, is there another absorbing tool? Good to see you, Lavania, by the way. Good to see you. Is there another absorbing tool you can use other than black pepper for curcumin? So some of you may not know that inside of curcumin supplementation, they often have black pepper inside of it. And the reason for that is to increase the absorption of it. But Galitha is asking, is there another tool that one can use to increase the absorption?
Liposomal curcumin is a bioavailable form, but I do want to make mention of this. So the concern with black pepper is because it impacts it causes hyperpermeability to the gut lining if you have too much of it. But the amounts that are used in supplements are just a pinch of it just to absorb the tumor in your, add it to your turmeric is not enough to cause a significant degree of damage. So I do want to make that clear. We're talking very small amounts of black pepper. And it's just the nature of it of curcumin. But liposomal technology has aided the absorption of curcumin. And again, as I mentioned, is lipophilic, meaning fatty in structure. So absorption is aided by eating fat, taking it with fat. That's one of the reasons why it's able to exert its effects on the brain in reducing inflammation. It's because of its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and because of its lipophilic property.
Got it. So there's another option for you, Galitha. Good to see you as well. And there was one epiphany that Joanne had, honey, which was that, oh my goodness, I've been taking zinc almost every day since the pandemic. So she mentioned this in the context of the balance between different nutrients that you were talking about a few minutes ago.
I want to talk on that just real briefly. There's a nuance there. So if you're taking zinc at 30 milligrams daily, you're not going to deplete your copper levels. But if you exceed 50 or higher milligrams and you continue to take that, that becomes a problem. Okay. So there is an upper tolerable limit on zinc. And if you start to see the decrease in copper levels at doses around 50 milligrams daily, long term. 30 milligrams is fine. 30 milligrams daily is fine.
Got it. Okay. Some questions about contacting you. So I did put the website in the chat in case you're interested. But friends, this has been a blast really to sit down with you, have some questions asked, listen to the presentation, and get some insight on some of the nutrients that affect our brain health. It's something that we don't talk about very often. And so it's very useful for us to do so. Feel free to share, tag us on Instagram at MyLivingManna whenever you can, and whenever you share with your friends and family. And I'd like to say that you can check the link in the description. In the description, you'll find a summary and also some other links there that you may be interested in. If you liked learning about these nutrients for a healthy brain, I'm sure you'll like this video that is over my head right now that talks about the source of your inflammation. That'll be a good video for you to watch next. And for now, I'm going to bid you adieu and enjoy your afternoon. All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks, Joanne. Thanks, Deborah. Talk to you soon.